Hello and welcome to another segment of Interviews That Matter. I'm your host Raj Mehta. Friends, in this segment we bring those guests who influence our lives. This includes elected officials, policymakers, heads of major organizations and other dignitaries. It is my sincere hope that the knowledge brought in by these guests will help our community. Today we have such guest. His name is Dr. Calvin Butts. Dr. Butts wears three hats. He is a clergyman, pastor for the oldest African American church in New York, and he is also a president and CEO of the SUNY College at Old Westbury, and he also runs a community development center. This interview will be divided into two episodes. Let's begin with episode number 1. Dr. Butts.
Raj Mehta, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. It's an honor to have you here, sir.
I'm delighted to be with you.
You know, I've enjoyed our last conversation about a few years ago, and it's really, I feel great to have you here again.
Thank you.
So appreciate your time coming here. Wanted to go over a little bit about your background because we did this about 3-4 years ago. I know you wear three hats. Currently you're wearing three hats. One is your pastor for the oldest African American church in the country in Harlem,
in New York State.
And New York State, right. And that's one hat. You're a pastor there.
Yes.
And the second is political activist, and the third hat that you're wearing is now is the CEO, president of the SUNY Old Westbury College.
That's correct. Right. That middle political activist. I run a development corporation that has been responsible for a lot of the housing, affordable housing, schools, and businesses in the Harlem community.
In the Harlem community.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is also kind of that is one of the activities that you.
That's one of the activities that I'm engaged in. Those would be the three major ones: pastor of the church, chairman of the development corporation. And president of SUNY Old Westbury.
Right, yeah. So tell us about yourself first, sir. I know that we have gone through in the past, but just to refresh the memory of the viewers again.
I'm a New Yorker, born and raised, actually born in Connecticut because my mother happened to be there when I came. But raised in New York City, Lower East Side of Manhattan in the Lillian Wall projects. Family moved from there to Queens. Corona, Queens, and then to East Elmhurst, Queens, and graduated high school, Queens, went to school in the South at Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, okay.
Left Morehouse College, returned to New York City to study theology at the Union Theological Seminary on Broadway here in Upper Manhattan. And from there, I did my Doctor of Ministry degree at Drew University down in Madison, New Jersey. And now for the last, 47 years, I've been a clergy person at the Abyssinian Baptist Church. At my 50th year, I was asked to lead the State University of New York College at Old Westbury. And I've been there for 20 years, and I'm about to retire from the college.
That I understand, and we're going to talk about that a little later. But, let's start about the church, the church that you are clergy at the church, right? And that is the oldest church, African American church in the country.
It's the oldest African American Baptist church in the state of New York.
Oh.
And one of the oldest churches in the country.
Oh, okay. So about 110 years old, right?
It is 211 years old.
211 years old?
Yes.
Wow. That is something. 211
it's an old church in terms of its secular history and time. It's serves predominantly people of African descent, African Americans.
Right.
It has a long and storied history of involvement in New York City, New York State, and the nation. Its primary work nationally came through Adam Clayton Powell Sr., who was a part of the Niagara movement and the founding of the NAACP. His social and political activism was transferred to his son, Adam Clayton Powell Jr., who became the first African-American council person in the city of New York, and then went on to become the first African-American person since Reconstruction, well, period, really, to be elected to the United States Congress from New York.
Wow, wow. And you've been there as a clergy for like 47 years.
47 years.
47 years.
Yeah.
So when you joined the church and now, what is the difference?
Well, of course, when I first came to Abyssinian,
Right.
as compared to now, the congregation is almost entirely different, you know. Many of the strong members of the past have transitioned, they passed away. Harlem is a completely different community. I would say largely due to the efforts of the Abyssinian Church to build better housing, to build schools, to create thriving businesses that would be useful to a growing community, pharmacies, restaurants. I'm trying to think of some other businesses that have come as a result of where we are. But these businesses have developed, they've grown. A lot of the crime that was associated with the community has been eliminated. We have better relationships with major institutions. Like one of the great institutions of New York is City College, which is part of the CUNY system.
CUNY system, right.
That's right. And so it's a completely different neighborhood. Art galleries, it begins to, it looks like a neighborhood again. And it continues to grow and expand. We are concerned now about the lack of affordable housing, which was our focus for the working man and woman.
Right.
Because the big developers are coming in and they are trying to get all of the property that's available to develop market rate housing. And the average man and woman can't afford it.
So church is involved in this activity?
Oh, church is very much involved in it. It's really our development corporation, which is separate from the church, but it was empowered to work by the church. So I currently am the chairperson of the board, a position that I'm trying to get out of because it really needs to be led by a lay person from the community, and we're looking forward to that now.
So like 47 years ago and now, as you see that, in front of your own eyes, there's a lot of transformation has happened.
Oh, a lot of transformation. Much of it good.
Right, much of it good.
Much of it good.
Right.
We've seen Columbia University spread northward from its 116th Street or so location. It's good to see the university grow. It's not so good because they haven't built much housing for the people who were in the neighborhoods where they're expanding. It's good that it exposes Harlem for its beauty. It is a residential community.
Right.
Maybe it's not that great for the expansion of the big box stores, that come in and just eat up all the commercial space.
Right.
These are things that have to be negotiated back and forth. But I think overall, the cleanup of a lot of the drug culture that was there, that's good. We need to create more businesses, though, for more employment for the young men and women who grow up in the community and who live there. So there are a number of challenges that we have to meet, but I think overall, at least the work we started has produced good results. We have to be careful to check the encroachment of those who are simply trying to make a dollar.
I'm sure there is people who are
Oh,
short-term gain, that kind of
yeah.
people, right?
Many of the developers, their only
Right.
concern is to
Right.
make a
It's
dollar.
just-
They're
yeah.
not concerned about the balance and the growth of the community, anything
right,
like
right,
that.
right, right. It's all economics for them.
Yes.
That's it. No. So what made this change in the like the transformation? Like I know that obviously Harlem used to be what it used to be. Like 40. I'm here for like almost 40 years, right? And I know that Harlem. I mean, obviously I didn't know. I don't know as much as you do, but the way I knew it, there were like a lot of issues were there before. Like so,
Well,
what made this transition? Like is the community leaders got together and kind of how does it
the
work?
transition in
How does it
Harlem
work?
from a community that was deteriorating in terms of its housing,
Right.
that was overrun by a lot of crime and drugs.
Right.
The transition came about because the people who lived in the community came together
Okay.
with a community-based organization
Okay.
and partnered with the public sector and the private sector and determined what was needed. To give you an example,
Yeah.
I sat around the table with community persons, teachers, college professors, small business owners, any number of persons come from our community, police officers. And we just simply talked about psychologists. What do we need in our community? What's missing? And as we laid it out on the table, they said, well, the church is here and it should be working on behalf of the people, as Abyssinian always has. So then we took a look at what we needed to do to address some of the issues on the table. And I reached out to a city councilman from Harlem at that time. His name was Frederick Samuel.
Okay.
And Fred Samuel said, yeah, we need to stop the encroachment of the moneyed developers who simply want to exploit the community.
Right.
And I can do that, or try through my political connections.
Right. Right.
And then we reached out to private institutions, corporations, banks. We worked very closely with Chase. We worked very closely with Citi. We worked very closely with European. We worked very closely with our own bank in the community, Carver.
Right.
By working with these public, private, and community-based organizations, we were the community-based, we were able to begin to address the issues. Crime.
Right.
We talked to our city council person. Money for development, the banks, you see. And the federal government became involved.
Right.
Bill Clinton was a big help.
Right.
When we built the Pathmark supermarket, Giuliani was a big help. He needs help now, but it was a big help then. I have a photograph with George Pataki, who was governor.
Right. He was.
Rudolph Giuliani, who was mayor.
Right.
The head of Chase Bank.
Right.
We were all together breaking ground for development because we needed a supermarket. Something as simple as a supermarket. One of the issues placed on the table by the community. Food at fair prices,
Right.
fresh, and accessible.
What was the name of the supermarket that opened on 125th Street or something?
Well, when we opened the supermarket on
What was it?
125th, it was Pathmark.
No.
Our Pathmark closed,
Right.
after many years,
Right.
and the supermarket now on 125th Street is Whole Foods.
Whole Foods. Okay. Okay. So see, it's like that. When you mentioned that, we got together, meaning that all these different kind of people, but somebody has to take a leadership. Like somebody has to say, okay, Dr. Butts, I'm doing this, can you come here? Whatever, right? People who are concerned about the community, people who are concerned about the crime, people who are concerned about their young people, right? So you are one of them, I guess. You are the leader. You have taken leadership role in
They
that,
called me the founder,
right?
so maybe I was the convener.
Right.
But we had architects around the table, again, educators around the table. We had business owners around
Right.
the table, sociologists and psychologists. Yeah,
No, I understand. They're
And
all
the
there.
community-based
Right.
organization
Right.
is where we gathered. And so our community-based organization was the Abyssinian Baptist Church.
Okay.
And then from there we reached out to the city council person,
Right.
the public sector.
Right. Right.
Because
right,
the
right.
public sector has money to invest.
Right.
The federal government, the state government.
Right.
And we reached out to the private sector, the
Right.
banks, the insurance companies, the foundations, the corporations. And when you put those three together, you can do anything. A threefold cord is not easily broken. And so we did a lot of development that was very positive for the community.
Right.
Now what we have to do is protect that
Right.
so that the community is just not overrun with market rate housing and people looking to exploit
Right. Right.
rather
right,
than
right.
to build a community.
So removing the drugs and removing the crime, that may be a big challenge.
It is a big challenge. It's a very difficult one.
Right.
But I will say this,
Yeah.
if a community works very closely, public sector, with the police department,
Right.
things can be accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
There are police officers,
Right.
and the majority of them
Mm-hmm.
hate, they don't want to see crime. They, you
Yeah,
know, they want to save their lives, they want to work
Right.
and, protect the community.
Right.
They want children to grow up strong. So we work very closely with the police.
Mm-hmm.
And the police were very helpful, extremely helpful in cleaning up some of the drug dens, stopping some of the quality of life crimes,
Right.
the loitering, the littering. The police were very helpful. People who would just speed through the community and cause crazy traffic situations.
Right.
Businesses who set up, men and women who would set up a business in front of a business, creating an unhealthy competition.
Right.
The police were very helpful. And but you have to have a relationship with the police department. You have to be able to
yes.
talk with them, and a community coming together in a community-based organization, a CBO, has that strength. Our community came together at our church.
So church was the focal point, basically.
Really.
I would say that, right?
It's
Because,
called faith,
Right.
FAITH, based
Right.
community development.
Right. Yeah. Otherwise, obviously there has to be some organization or something where people can
That's
come
right.
from all walks.
That's right.
And then kind of do whatever they need to do, or they get ideas.
That's right.
So you became a focal point, I would say. As a founder.
Well, as a founder, yeah, because I'm very much interested in it.
Right,
I saw people being displaced from their houses. I saw crime, exploding. I saw young men and women exploited by some, S-O-M-E, that's a key word, by some police officers.
Ah, okay.
See? And we called attention to it. Not. I mean, most of the police are very good, but there are some SOME who
Yeah.
are not.
Right.
They're culturally biased, culturally ignorant, and they're informed by the worst in our society rather than the best.
Weren't you scared?
No, this is this ring that I'm wearing is a Ghanaian symbol, and this symbol reminds you that you should fear none but God, or accept God. That's the way it's referred to, accept God.
Right.
You should fear none except God. So I was afraid of God if I didn't do what God called me to do.
Okay. That makes sense.
But another man or woman,
Yeah. No. Right. So you had a really courage, or you took a courage to go against all these people who were really, who were not doing the right thing.
the people who exploit our communities,
Right.
the people who
Right. Yeah.
are responsible for crime
Right.
and hatred.
Right.
You don't. they're bullies, if
Yeah,
you will.
that's what I'm saying,
And
yeah.
if you don't face them,
Yeah, yeah.
then you have to answer to one who has more power than all of us.
So that's what the major thing is, that
Sure.
because you're a clergyman, you're a pastor, and that's why you probably understand that.
Well, I do understand it, and I'm fearful of that.
Right,
You
right,
know,
right.
but another man, another woman, a system, no.
Right. Yeah. But then you could do this because of somebody has to take some steps, right? And
Well, yeah.
you
I
don't
mean,
take steps,
people
nothing
have
will
to
happen.
act.
Right.
That's right.
Nothing happens.
Right.
Right.
You can pray all day long for that chair to move, but until you
Right.
put your hands on it and move it, it'll sit right there.
It's going to sit right there. Right. Yeah. So I think Bill Clinton also had President Clinton had also a lot to do because he moved into Harlem.
Well, President
and
Clinton was important in terms of coming to Harlem,
Right.
because it served as another opportunity for people to see what a wonderful community
Right.
it is and it was.
Right.
It had some issues.
Right.
And when you have someone of the stature of the President of the United States,
Right.
Bill Clinton that is, not the
Right.
current one,
Right.
moving into a community, people say, wow, what are we
Right.
missing here?
Oh, yeah,
Let's
big
go
deal.
and see what we can do.
Yep.
Now, it also had its negative effect, because as people noticed the community and development opportunities because Clinton was there, they came, purchased property, and then they raised the lease amounts beyond what the average business person could afford. That pushed a lot of people out rather than encouraging people to come in. So while Clinton was trying to do a good thing, there were and are some negative results of his being in the community. We met with him on several occasions, tried to address this as best we could, but market forces are difficult to work against.
Yeah.
And when you don't have that kind of money to pay lawyers and accountants, you find yourself up against a formidable enemy. And
Totally understand. Totally understand very well that thing. Yeah. But the balance is important, right? Balance is very important.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you want to preserve this, community, you want to preserve the small thing, but without getting, big thing coming in, the development stops.
we know that you can't have comprehensive community development with just low-income women and men.
Exactly.
You have to have a
Exactly.
mix of people in the
Right,
community. You
right.
have some people who need affordable housing. You have some people who can live in luxury housing.
Exactly.
Some people who will live in apartments. Some people who will
Right.
live in detached private homes.
Right.
You have a mix of people.
Right.
And New York City represents probably one of the largest and best examples of a diverse community.
Yep.
And so while I think for a while Harlem will continue to have its African American flavor.
Right.
But more and more you see others who are moving in.
Right.
They call it gentrification. We must oppose that. We must push back against gentrification. But we must also remember that the gentry, while largely white, is also black. So people of color have resources also.
Right.
And we want the lawyers and the doctors, we want the movie producers, we want the business persons to also make Harlem their home.
Right, because they also will give jobs to the local
Give
young
jobs to the
people.
local people. They
And,
spend
which
money
are
in the
good-
stores.
Yeah, and which are good paying jobs. Right?
Yeah, they
I mean,
fight more vigorously for better schools for the
right,
children.
Exactly.
So these are things that you want,
Right.
but you don't want to destroy the flavor. I'm a New Yorker. I grew up on the Lower East Side.
Right.
We would visit Little Italy.
Right.
Anybody should be able to live there, but the flavor of it was just wonderful. Chinatown, the flavor of it, the culture. You want to be able to move in, and anybody can live there.
Right.
Anybody should be able to open a store there.
Right, right,
You see what I mean?
Right,
Harlem
right.
is the black and the culture, the Renaissance, all of that. But anybody should be able to live there. But you should not push out poor people
No.
to the advantage of the wealthy.
That is absolutely true, but at the same time, poor people will get more opportunity because of that. So that's the thing that you have to see. What is the benefit and what's this
Balance.
balance, right? So that's important. Like, and for the organization that you chair, that is very important for that balance, to maintain the balance, right? Yeah, right. Yeah. So what is your biggest challenge now?
My biggest challenge now?
Now, right, in the community, I'm talking about
Keeping the balance.
keeping the balance.
Yeah, my biggest challenge is keeping that balance, not to allow
Mm-hmm.
those who simply want to build luxury housing and market rate housing to overpower
Mm-hmm.
poor people, seniors who've been in the community for years and
Right.
years,
Right.
hardworking people, maybe living on a fixed income now,
Right.
not to overpower, keep them out.
Right.
We want to build housing for the working poor. We want them. There's a police officer and a nurse. They're husband and wife. They have one child, maybe two, and on their salaries they can't afford luxury apartments. They need apartments that they can afford.
Right.
So keeping that balance, fighting against the market forces that really don't care about people.
Yeah,
No compassion.
It's all money.
All money.
All money.
And so that's the big challenge right now. And the market forces are powerful.
Very powerful,
Very
because
powerful.
when somebody shows green, everything changes.
Right. And even somebody who should be thinking, well, I grew up in this neighborhood. I want to make sure others can grow up in this neighborhood. They have a chance of making it. But you show them enough green, they'll sell out right away.
That's what I'm saying. Then everything changes,
Right.
and then obviously one person sells, the other one will sell. That kind of thing, right? That's
That's
a effect,
That's
and
right.
it's hard to prevent that.
And what most people don't realize
Yeah.
is while you paid $15,000 for your brownstone in Harlem,
Right.
and somebody's coming along now and you're elderly and they say, well, I'll give you $2 million.
Right. There you go.
You say, wow.
That's what I'm saying.
Let me take the money.
Exactly.
But what they don't realize is
Right.
that $2 million can't get you much.
Right.
It does not buy the kind
But
of
it's
home.
hard to convince. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
Have you convinced anybody like that?
A few people who
Yeah.
understand, but no, not many of them just
Right.
go right ahead.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what logic do you use to convince them? I mean,
Well,
it's
you have an interest in the community. You have an interest in the flavor of the community. You grew up here. You want maybe your grandchildren, but no, they're too quick to sell.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's not easy.
Oh, but the other thing is, I say, look, you have all this space.
Right.
It's a beautiful home. I know you don't need it.
Right.
But let's take the $2 million. Do you think that for $2 million you're going to get something nearly comparable to this? An apartment where you can get your furniture, a place that you can move into? No. And that helps to convince you. And you show them, look at this apartment. This apartment costs $1.5 million.
Right.
You can't even move your furniture in here.
Right. Right.
You know, it may be better for you to talk about how you can use the home you have.
Right.
Maybe downsize yourself into a smaller area of it, lease out the rest, and pass the blessing on either to any beneficiary you wish.
Or they might want to take the money and move out, go to Atlanta or somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what the
Yeah.
developers say. Don't
Yeah.
you want to sell?
Yeah.
Why don't you sell your property? This is the kind of ugliness that exists.
Right.
Sell your property and go down south with the rest of your people.
Right.
Just
Rest
like
of
that.
your people.
Yeah, that's what they say.
What
Yeah,
do
down
you mean
south
by
with the rest of
your
your people. Yeah, move. That's where they're going, right? You go.
Wow.
Nobody's going to give you the kind of money we're going to give you for your house. So people are elderly, they get frightened,
Right. Right. Right.
they
right,
sell out.
Right. Yeah, they sell out because they are scared also. And number two is that like all these people come in and they don't know what's going to happen to them.
So we try to convince people, and then we show them how the property that they have
Right.
can be a bigger blessing, and how they could take that $2 million and maybe take the downstairs apartment. Everything is on one level,
Right.
and rent out the top 3 floors.
And you have been successful doing that.
Some.
Right? Yeah.
Money is
Money
hard to
talk.
beat.
Money.
Yeah,
It's very difficult against that force.
that's right.
Right? Yeah. As you said, the balance is more important, right? I mean, obviously there will always be some people who will be, inclined to do this?
There'll always be some people who recognize the
Right.
value in the community, who
Right.
stayed there, who
Right,
want to
right.
remain, who will not sell.
Right, right, right.
And then you have to also say to people, look, you can't build a community with just one level of housing. You have to have housing for the people, luxury apartments,
Right.
Middle income, you know, affordable, if you quote unquote, and for poor people.
Right, right.
You see, the poverty may feed into tearing down somebody's character because they have to do whatever they need to do to survive.
Right, right, right.
But poverty should not define a person's character. You're still a good person.
Absolutely, yeah.
Even though you may not have as much money as I do.
Right.
You may even be a better person than I am.
Right, right, right.
So I have to judge you by the content of your character, not the color of your skin or the size of your pocketbook.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Because, you know, it's the action that makes people bad or good. Otherwise, they are always good. People are good by nature. It's just whatever they do, action. You know, an action is as a result of certain circumstances.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I believe in innate goodness, but I also know that basically when we're born, it's kind of like a clean slate.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it's how we are educated, trained, what we're taught, how we're nurtured by our parents that helps to develop our character.
Yeah. It's, you know, person is characteristic is surrounded by people who they are surrounded by, right? That's how it works basically, normally, right? Yeah. So the church is basically, you know, I understand that, you know, it's now 40 years ago. Obviously, there are less number of members and all that, but now probably it has a lot more members now.
Oh no. Abyssinian
Is not a membership.
it was the first. Abyssinian was the first mega church in the world.
In the world.
Yeah.
Wow.
First mega church in the world. And so membership for us, we don't base what we do on the number of members.
Okay.
You know, I think people say, well, I have 10,000, I have 20,000, I have 50,000. It is the size of the hearts of the people in the church. So I know a church that has 60 members, but they do more for the community and interact more for the community and shine a brighter light in the community than a church about a mile away that has 10,000 members. So you know, people who try to base their ministry and its effectiveness based on numbers, I don't.
It's what they give, what they give back. That's what it means, right? I mean, you know, that's more.
People say, who is the best preacher?
Right.
And I had a learned gentleman tell me once, the best preacher is a guy in a small town with 15 members that gather. And when he stands, or she stands, if you will, on a Sunday morning, that's the best preacher right there.
Wow, interesting.
That's the best one.
Interesting. And you do every week this thing,
I try.
right?
Yeah, I try.
Good. So every week you are there in the church and you're basically a pastor, right?
Yes.
You're
If I'm not
giving a
traveling
lecture,
Sunday morning, I'm right there.
and you're giving lecture,
Or sermon.
right?
Yeah.
Or a sermon, right? So what is the message? Is it same message every week or different message every
Well, it's
week?
different messages trying to put the same point forward.
Okay.
I'm a Christian. Our example of the godly life is through Jesus.
Right,
We call the Christ, the Messiah.
right.
That's our example. So I point people, or try to point them to Jesus, and say, now, if you're sad and lonely or brokenhearted, what did Jesus say? What was his teaching about this? Jesus taught us to pray often, and so I point toward prayer. Jesus often used Samaritans. Samaritans and Jews didn't get along. They were sort of like enemies. But Jesus said, you know, the Samaritans are really God's children too. and used them in a lot of his, well, in several of his parables to illustrate. And he was a Samaritan. A Samaritan woman came to him at the well. He spoke to her. So we stress, you know, understanding people as human beings. We come from different cultures, different backgrounds, but I have to respect you as one of God's children. You may not speak the same language, you may not have the same skin coloration, you may not eat the same foods, you know, but you're still one of God's children. And therefore I have to love you. And love is expressed in making sure that you have what you need to live in this world. Food and water, you know, that you're treated fairly. The sermons are around subjects like that.
Oh, okay.
And the primary subject, I guess, is love. God is love, yeah.
See, I'm from, you know, like there are different faiths in the world, as
That's
you know,
right.
You know, like, you know, major, you know, Christianity or Hinduism and Muslims and Judaism, and there are many different kind of faiths. And you know, there are like, you know, I'm from a Jain faith, Jain, right? So what we believe in soul, basically. We said, you know, body is really not important. Body is like, you know, just to be here, but really it's the soul is important. And we believe in reincarnation, basically. That our soul, when it gets out from one body, it goes into another body, right? Yeah. So all this different religion, the ultimate aim is spirituality, to get out of all these things.
Well, I would say that
yeah,
it's not necessarily to get out, but to point people to a higher level of understanding. So, if you believe that, and I believe in soul, I'm not sure that I believe in resurrection more than reincarnation. But that shouldn't stop me from treating you like a human being.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
You know, it shouldn't because you're a Jain and I'm a Christian, that should not keep us from, if I see you laying in the street, I go and pick you up.
Right.
And if you need to go to the hospital, I take you to the hospital.
Right.
You know, and if I see you and you're hungry, I need to feed you. And if I see that you've been treated unfairly, I need to speak up about the unfair treatment. Yeah. That's what we believe. Unfortunately, that has not been practiced by Christians, so-called, toward people of color. And I mean, and if we just take a abbreviated look at history from 1619 to now, 400 years, slavery, transatlantic slave trade, segregation, discrimination. You know, I mean, how could you worship God on Sunday, and engage in the slave trade on Monday? It's called hypocrisy.
See, most of the time when I see that, you know, when obviously, you know, when they are in a church, or whoever is, somebody is in a church, as soon as they get out, business is as usual.
And that, you know, subject matter helps to inform the sermons. You know, we try to speak against it. Now, we all make mistakes. We're all sinners. We all fall short of the high ideal. But we strive. We work toward it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the discrimination, as you said, you know, there was there and it's still there, and it's not going to. It's hard to go away.
Hard to go away.
It's hard to go away in my mind.
Well, yeah, but the more we preach, the more we exhibit, you know, our faith in terms of our behavior toward our fellow human beings, I think the better off we'll be.
True, but see, it's like that, you know, doctor, that everybody goes into their own silos kind of thing. Church.
Sure.
Let's say, for example, you know, somebody who is in wherever, Atlanta or Houston or wherever it is, they go into their own silos, right? So they listen to only this silos, and they still know all this, you know, thing that what you just mentioned. But then when they see other person in a different, you know, different background or different thing, then again they don't fit into their silo.
Well, yeah, but look at the men and women who have risen above the narrow confines of a culture or defined religion. You know, Mother Teresa cared for anybody.
Right. Yep. Yep.
Gandhi
Right.
rose above all of that.
Oh yeah.
Martin Luther King Jr.
Right.
had reached that point. Abraham Joshua Heschel had reached that point. And we have to continue to press. And in our everyday interactions, you know. So if I see a poor white person being treated unfairly,
Yeah, you do that.
I'll have to stand
up
and defend,
Right.
you know, that person's right. Any human being
Right.
should be loved.
I guess it keeps on. If you keeps on giving same message, one after the other, then someday it gets into that.
Hopefully.
I mean that's
Hopefully,
what
but we get set.
Right.
You know, sometimes we see setbacks.
Right.
You know, we see people who have major stage. They have an opportunity to speak to the world,
Right.
and they spew out hate and division.
Wow. Interesting. Yep. So love is the main message that you normally give.
Yes, I mean, if you want to capsule, it's love. Yes.
Right. Basically,
God is love.
Love everybody, whoever it is, doesn't matter what it is, and you just give kind of, basically.
Well,
Give whatever you can.
Yeah. You do what you can.
Do what you can, right? Yeah. So you're now a president of SUNY Old Westbury School,
Yes.
and you've been there for 20 years. You've done a lot of good work, and that also is very diverse college in this old SUNY system, as I understand, right?
It is the State University of New York College at Old Westbury.
Right.
Per capita is the most diverse school
Right.
in the 64 campus system.
Right.
So we have, and I hate to talk in terms of race, there's no such thing as race really, it's a false construct, but we have white students and black students, we have Asian students, we have Christians and Jews and Muslims, we probably have a few Jains, you know. It represents the world in which we live today. And male and female, people of different sexual orientations, all right there. And we, as a state university, respect that, and we work hard to maintain our diversity. And it's a wonderful institution. It's a great institution.
So 20 years, you've seen probably again, made a lot of progress in terms of education, in terms of getting a lot of more facilities.
In 20 years, we made a lot of progress. We
Right.
built new facilities. We
Right.
built new dormitories, new academic building, new student union, new police headquarters. We've seen a lot of changes. Educationally, we've added graduate programs. There were no graduate programs when we arrived. We have expanded our reach into our surrounding community.
Right.
Our town-gown relationships are so much better. People don't look askance at us anymore. They kind of say, wow, this is beautiful, what's going on here. We are happy to have an organization like Horseability on our campus, where the equestrian activities are used to help children with certain developmental challenges, as well as just, they say if you can get along with a horse, you can get along with anybody. So, and because of State University of New York College at Old Westbury, we're able to take that sense of inclusion and show that we're serious about it in terms of our interactions. So I met Raj Mehta at the networking magazine, Christine Sheehan.
Right.
And we made that connection. And we've been talking ever since.
That's true.
Christine came with her little camera taking pictures, and sitting down and talking. That was a major step forward for me. I said, who is she? What is she? And he said, oh, she's with Network Magazine, you know. And I, got to know her. I got to her husband. I think her sons. I want to say her sons.
Yeah. Yes.
But it was just that simple, kind gesture that helped me, at least, to meet you, but to meet a number of other people who received the David Award.
Right.
Those kinds of things are important.
Yep. Yep.
You know, people they don't have to do that.
Yes.
You know.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's important, and I mean, you meet a lot of good people in your life, and then you just, take the good vibes. When you meet good people, I feel like good vibes come in. Really, that when I meet you, I feel great.
When I first got out here, not only Chris, I met a developer. He came by to the campus just to sit down and talk. His name was DeMattis. I didn't know who he was.
Right.
But then as we talked for a while, I began to say, well, this gentleman has been philanthropic. He's wealthy, and we developed a rapport. People don't have to do that.
Right.
They really don't have. Bob Cattell.
Yeah, Bob Cattell.
With the Long Island Association, so many, and then the Light and Power Company. Bob took me to play golf. He didn't have to do that.
Right. Yeah. No.
Those are the kinds of expressions that help to build a strong community.
Right.
And help to build a strong Long Island.
Right.
And it is the willingness to include others into your circle. I've had the privilege of inviting some of the people that I know to our campus, and they have just, the students said, wow, Michael Bloomberg has been to our campus.
Oh, yeah.
Jamie Dimon has been.
Wow. Okay.
Mr. Rubin was the treasurer of the United States, has been to our campus. I mean, we've invited a number of very distinguished people, and if you use of all races,
right.
and the community that planted the trees to celebrate the 150th anniversary of Gandhi's birth on our campus.
Oh yeah.
These men and women, primarily from India,
okay.
they didn't have to do. They came to our campus.
See, what I think is, all this thing that you mentioned, all people this came into SUNY Old Westbury. I have to say this, that is because of your stature, because of you, that you have such a high level of involvement, and plus your status is amazing in the community and everywhere. That is why all these people are attracted. Now I know, as we know, we're going to talk about your retirement. Obviously you're retiring now. It would be very difficult for anybody to fill in your shoes.
No. You're in trouble when you think that nobody can.
You are not thinking, we are thinking. It's not you. But because of you, for example, when you said Michael Bloomberg and all this, Jamie Dimon, all these people came in. They don't go to every school, right?
Huh?
Do they go to every school? Tell me.
I don't know. They came to our school, and
That's what I'm saying.
And I appreciate. But Brad, if I walk out here and drop dead tomorrow, the world goes on.
No, world will always go on. I agree with you. I'm not saying
right.
that. But what I'm saying is that when it's not easy. It's not easy. It would not be easy for the college to fill in your shoes. So I just want to be very open and honest.
Well, I
with
appreciate
you. Whatever I feel that.
But I'm looking forward to retiring. I've been there 20 years.
Right.
The average shelf life of a president is about 6 years.
Okay.
So I've already outlived 3 presidents there. It takes a certain creativity in times like these.
Right.
When I first started at the church, I used to say, "Oh, the old folk are on AM, and the young folk are on FM. And now if that was the case, now I'm part of the old folk, and I'm on FM, and the young folk are on Sirius, you know, the satellite radio. Times change. My rhythm and blues artist was James Brown.
Right.
I'm not now. It's Beyonce and Jay-Z. You know, you lose a certain touch.
Right.
With what's happening now.
Right.
Now I think there are classics to read. I think there's conventional wisdom that'll be good forever. And I'm willing to share what I know about that as a kind of foundation. But along with these days and times, just social media.
Right. Oh yeah.
You know, it's time for a younger generation to come up. And if I could be helpful in bringing that generation up, I certainly will be there. Then it's just the energy. Raj, you're a young man. You can run forever. But I can't. So this project may take someone who can do a 50-yard dash in 4 seconds, 5 seconds. I may be able to finish the 50 yards, but not as quickly. I'm just saying the vitality, the vigor, the energy.
Right.
I'm not saying I'm dead, but it, you know, the vision.
Right.
It's time to get out of the way.
No, I totally understand what you are saying. That today is a different world than what used to be. Obviously, when I was growing up, obviously, if I had to do something, I had to go to the library in order to get the books, and then I get the knowledge what I wanted to get rather. And that also I had to wait for the book to come in because somebody else might have borrowed it. And now everything is like on the fingertip.
Right at your
fingertip. Everything is on the fingertip. So things have changed dramatically. And there's a big difference between the way we think and the way young generation thinks.
Except the younger generation still needs a kind of foundation, a sense of stability underneath. That's that conventional wisdom. That's that experience.
True.
So I'm not really ready to retreat and just do nothing instead. But I do know that I cannot continue to do what I did 20 years ago.
True.
At the pace with which I did it. Because as you pointed out at the beginning, pastor of the church, president of the college, and leader of the development corporation. All three of these things take enormous energy.
Yep.
I mean, you're thinking constantly, you're moving constantly, you're going. When I leave you, I'm going to another event.
Right.
Many people know what that's like to be moving constantly.
Right.
Now, when you get to 70 years and 10, like I say, maybe 70 is the new 60.
Right.
But I haven't discovered that that's totally true. You see, and so therefore, there are, and I've seen them, young men and women who deserve a chance and their ideas, and they are congruous with the conventional wisdom. They're not off on some planet someplace. They are stable. They have vision.
Right.
They have the energy and the knowledge to make that vision a reality. I had, and I still have some vision, but I had vision. I had the energy and the vitality to make the vision a reality.
Right.
It worked in Harlem with the Development Corporation. Right. It worked at State University of New York at Old Westbury. And the church. The church is very stable. We built a new building. That will add to our footprint. The people are still interested in listening to the gospel message, and because we're so old, they want to make sure that there's a certain stability there, and we just don't run off and start doing something that's totally outlandish. So I'll still be working, you know. I'll still be at the church.
I mean, everybody needs you, you know, that for sure, number one. Second, what I am saying is this, that see, I also like, you know, I also kind of, you know, mentor young businesses, right? I mentor young businesses, small businesses, startup businesses. I do mentor for Small Business Administration, New York State. I do mentor. And I've learned hard way in my 33 years of business that it's, you know, who you know comes first, what you know comes later.
Somebody's got to open the door, right?
Exactly. Who you know comes first, right? So that's why I'm saying that, you know, who you know is here. That the connections and all these people came into the campus became more known to the people who were supposed to know about the campus. And therefore, the more more grants or investment or whatever it is that came in to the campus, and that's why you could expand it. Young generation definitely have good ideas, great ideas. Some of them are very energetic, good vision, but that vision needs somebody like you who knows people.
Well,
that's what I mean.
I will say to all who watch your program,
right,
that my years in leadership at State University have been some of the best years of my life.
Exactly.
I've enjoyed it. A lot of struggle now, a lot of hard work, but I met a lot of beautiful people. I've learned more about Long Island. I discovered in Long Island many years ago. I was a youngster coming out to visit friends in Amityville, you know, and I had not even gone to the East End.
Right.
But I never will forget, as I got older and I developed friends, you know, I'd go out to Sag Harbor and East Hampton and, you know, places like that.
Right.
And, you know, my friends were not impecunious, you know, they had. And so I was used to the luxury of the summer, you know, and the houses and and then as State University president, I went out to recruit in East Hampton to this high school.
Right.
And I met the people who lived there year round. They're poor.
Really?
And I don't say that as a put down. I mean, they just don't make as much money as those people who come out there and lavishly spend in the summertime, you know.
Wow.
These men and women are, you know, they have meager incomes. Those are the students across this state, which is why SUNY is so important,
right.
who need the state university access and affordability.
Right.
That's what I hope to represent. They need to be able to learn how to use equipment. We have a communications major at our school. They need the connections to people like you, till they can come maybe and do an internship or something like that. And note, I never said black or brown or white.
Right.
I said poor. And people don't like to be called poor. I'm not poor, but when you compare, you know, your salary against, it's tough to make it. On Long Island, it's tough to live. I talk about affordability in Harlem and Manhattan.
Right.
But out here, a young man or a woman trying to get their life together and get started, there's no housing for them.
Right. It's hard.
Yeah. It's very hard, and that's not fair. So I have to advocate for affordable housing. They have Long Island Housing Partnership is doing a great job, but we have to do more. You know, and I know people want open space, so we have to advocate for that. It's one of the beauties of Long Island. But I met the mayor of Patchogue.
Okay.
Done a great job over there, you know, trying to open up, you know, and make entertainment available and try to hold on to a younger demographic.
Right.
These are, you know, good things.
I've heard about that. You know, Patchogue has been, and they're also doing like a lot of advertisement on IDAs and kind of thing, right? Yeah.
So, you know, being at Old Westbury has taught me a lot about the largest suburb in the United States, I believe, Long Island.
Long Island, right? Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And then, you know, you learn about issues like immigration.
Right.
You know, large population of Latin Americans, you know, Central Americans, coming, and many of them in Long Island, and watch what it does to a school district, like a Hempstead. But they are God's children.
Yep.
See, we go back.
At the end of the day, is that. That's
and they have to be loved.
Yeah, that's it.
You know, but then that takes resources.
Right. Oh yeah.
And where's the money coming from?
Yeah, exactly.
These are the kinds of things. But people of like minds, people of goodwill, community, public, and private, can solve these problems. I'm a living witness, because I've led that effort. We can solve these problems.
Right.
To the benefit of all.
See, all I'm saying is, yes, I agree with you that it can solve the problem, but all it takes is one leader who is willing to put in time and effort in order to combine all this together.
Well, I think you have people on Long Island who can do that.
I'm sure there are.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are. But I'm just saying that definitely is important.
Well, I've enjoyed it. I mean, the presidents of before me were outstanding men, McGuire and some others. So I've enjoyed my stay at Old Westbury.
So you are going to continue to work on two different things. That is, community development in Harlem as well as the church.
Yeah, I'm trying to transition. We'll be seeking new leadership for the Development Corporation. And
okay, for that also.
Yeah, and the church, I'll be there, but not much longer, because once again, to be prepared to preach every Sunday, and that's not all we do now. I don't know about other pastors, but regular sick visitation, in and out of the hospitals, community involvement, meetings and things of that nature, counseling, funerals, weddings,
right.
yeah. So those kinds of things take up. But again, looking for the young man or woman who can pick that up and continue to grow. Time moves quickly.
Time moves quickly, but it's not easy to find such a, like for example, in a, SUNY Old Westbury, if they have to find somebody like you, it's not that easy for them. It would not be easy. I mean, that's the way I am guessing, that it's not going to be that easy for them to find somebody like that. Anything is possible, but it's not easy. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It will take time for them to find somebody, and they may have to appoint an interim somebody until they find.
Well, I'm hoping to be involved in helping them to find, as
okay.
people would want, or maybe expect. And I hope that, because as you talk about it takes time, you're right. But 20 years went by like
I
that.
I know. Time
Just
flies.
like that. You blink, it's gone. And so therefore, it's time to start now. And hopefully the transition, will work and be smooth.
As you say, the world goes on anyway.
That's right.
The 2019 is almost over. I mean, I just remember it started, and now it's almost over, right? So now let me ask you something which you may or may not like it, I don't know, but about 2020 presidential election. Obviously, Democrats are, there are like many of them good candidates. Who do you think is the qualified person, the most qualified person in the whole 12 people that was there 2 days ago?
Well, there are certain kinds of nuances here. The most qualified is Joe Biden. I mean, he's been a senator forever.
Right.
He was vice president of the United States.
Right.
And obviously his time spent, his negotiations. I think he chaired. I could be wrong here. I think he chaired Foreign Affairs or Foreign Relations, which is a huge responsibility in the Senate. So qualified, Joe Biden.
Who gets a nomination then?
That's another story.
Right.
Now, Joe Biden, the nuance is his age.
Exactly.
You know, his
That's what
age.
I
So you have to, you know, Elizabeth Warren she's brilliant, she's creative, she's feisty, you know, she's good. I like Buttigieg. He's young, he's smart,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and I saw the debate. He came through pretty strongly.
I like him more than
Yeah.
anybody else.
Yeah, Buttigieg.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Buttigieg.
Yeah. You know why?
And I met him the other. What's the
you
day?
did?
Today is Thursday. I met him last Friday.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
And
okay.
I was impressed by him.
Right.
You know,
right,
he seemed to be steady, focused,
right.
and eager to reach out.
Right.
And I like somebody who, you know, we only had a few moments together. We talked about some issues, and he said, "I want your support." He's a good closer. So. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No. I mean, you know, see, as you said, the Sanders and Bernie Sanders, as well as the Joe Biden, is kind of age is pretty against that.
Yeah, and
Maybe
see,
I'm wrong, but you know that's the way I see
well,
it.
Bernie Sanders is a smart man. He's got a big issue that I think is right in terms of getting corporate influence out of government in the sense of especially these elections. But he's older, but I think his voice is necessary. I think he loses the beauty contest.
Right.
But I think if you had Biden as president and somebody like Pete Buttigieg as vice president, you might have a good ticket. Or if you had Warren as president and somebody like Pete Buttigieg, I think you got a good ticket. And I think Warren still faces an issue that's going to be around for just a little while longer, and that is the gender issue. I hate to say that, but I think that's going to play a big role in it.
I think, you know,
So,
whether the U.S. is ready or not, that's the key.
But if you gave me three in some kind of, if I had to take 3 to 4 in some kind of presentation, I'd take Biden and Warren. I'd take Buttigieg, and I'll probably just leave it there. I like the woman from Hawaii. I can't call her name now.
Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah. Why?
She's also good.
Yeah. Why? Because, you know, and she's a veteran.
She's a veteran, right? She's a veteran.
So is
right.
Buttigieg.
Yes, Buttigieg is also a veteran.
Anybody who's been in or near war,
Right.
you know, which Trump hasn't, which Bush hadn't, you know, anybody who's in or near war certainly doesn't want it, understands better than anybody who has not.
True, because discipline and also when you are in army.
Discipline, that's right, thought.
You know,
but when you've seen warfare,
yeah.
you develop a hatred for it right away.
Right, yeah.
I mean, it's an ugly thing.
Yeah. It would be an interesting election in 2020, you know, like obviously, you know, Trump is also again, you know.
He's going to run, yeah. I mean, he's the standard bearer for the Republican Party.
Yeah.
I really do think that Trump will lose.
Oh, you think
I mean, I just think the country is, you know, even people who may, you know, America first, make America great again and all that. I mean, his behavior has been just, he doesn't represent the nation well. And so I think he will lose. But I just, and you know, you want to see somebody with more humanity, more dignity, you know. I mean, he's even embarrassing the evangelicals, white evangelical Christians who've been supporting him. He's embarrassing them, you know. I mean, with his behavior.
He doesn't leave anybody, though, I guess.
You know, so,
he's like,
you know, and
different kind of person.
You know, I'm praying for Trump. I'll put it like that. But I'll say that, you know, just in terms of, you know, if I saw him on the side of the road and he was hungry and bleeding and he needed help,
you'll help.
Sure.
You'll help him. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, you just don't leave a man. He's still a human being.
Right, exactly.
You know, right now I don't think he'll win. And those are, you know, if I had to take the candidates, it would be Warren, Biden, Buttigieg, and Tulsi Gabbard.
Right, yeah.
I'd say those would be, in my book, I'm watching them most closely.
Yang has also a different idea.
Yang is good.
Different
man.
idea.
Yeah,
it's
different
mostly
idea.
on economy, basically.
But, Martin Luther King Jr. put
Right.
forth that guaranteed income way back.
Right.
So I think, Yang is, I'd keep Yang around in my cabinet.
Right. Yeah,
somewhere.
Because, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He has a good ideas. I mean,
it's
the
a
way
good idea.
he said this, like wealth tax and all that, failed in many different countries. You can tax, wealthy, okay, but still it failed. Wealth tax and everything failed in many different countries. So, as remember we talked about balance.
Yes.
Balance is more important. Like you can't just, hurt here and then gain here.
Well, look at
It's
De
not gonna-
Blasio says a tale of two cities, right?
Yeah.
So he's going to rail against the rich. He's going to attack Wall Street.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, but Wall Street, you need Wall Street.
I know a woman who owned a restaurant.
Yeah.
She took a great chunk of her money that she had put away and bought one of these mobile restaurants, the trucks.
Right.
And I hadn't seen her in her restaurant in a long time. So when I bumped into her, she said, I bought this truck. And I said, well, where do you park? It's not, I don't see it around the neighborhood. She said, oh, no. She said, I take it to Wall Street. She said, and I park it down there and I have lines. People waiting to buy from my truck.
Right.
And then she said, and de Blasio said, I don't want them to go anywhere. That's my income.
Exactly.
And she does very well. So you have to have a balance. And I never would have been able to accomplish what happened at Old Westbury.
Right.
Or what happened in Harlem if I did not have a relationship not only with the elected officials but also with the private sector.
Right. Yeah. You need.
This is the United States of America. Now, if I was in China, maybe it was a different story.
Right.
But I'm not in China.
Exactly. It's a different story, right? Yeah.
And then what you have to learn is Mr. Trump was not a successful business person, and you can't dump on an economic power like China. I think we can compete, and I think we can outdo them economically, but you have to give them credit. You just have to say, I don't necessarily like their way they govern, but that's not my issue either.
Right.
I have to keep them in check. I have to watch the balance of power. There, the word is again balance of power in the world. But no, I don't start off on a tariff war with them. It's not a good idea. So, Mr. Mehta.
Well, I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Now,
nice chatting with you always, as you always, and it's an honor.
It's my pleasure, Raj, and I wish you only the best.
Thank you so much.
Good health and continuing prosperity.
Thank you, sir.
Peace.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you have any questions, comments, you can email me at rajmitv@gmail.com. That's again rajmitv@gmail.com. You can watch our prior shows on YouTube at youtube.com/rajmehta33. That's again youtube.com/rajmehta33. Until next time, have a great week. Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Raj.